have with us today, and I'm a little casual with the introduction, but thank you for being with us, Brother Eric.
Pleasure to be here, Biz.
You know, Brother Eric, we all pray that catastrophe and maladies would pass us by. And in the case of a hurricane, especially when you live in the Gulf and you know it must come out somewhere on the land, some brothers skate, some brothers don't. So it's by God's will, no matter what happens. You wish for the best, but His will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've been lucky, but there are other people who obviously aren't. So, you just can pray away so much, and what will be, will be. And that's okay, because we know where we're going. Got to tell you something, Brother Eric, and I'm not much into this kind of thing, but when we were driving up to the station, we've had rain bands all the time for 48 hours. And we saw a rainbow, and we know what that means. But what Lady Viz and I had never seen before, and I don't know if this is an omen or whatever, but we actually, for the first time, honestly, saw a rainbow's end.
Mm-hmm.
We actually saw it descend into a field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if that means anything good or bad, but I'm just telling you that in case we don't ever talk again. But it was really stupendous. What a sight. What brings us together, and before we go any further, we want to let you know that Eric John Phelps is the author of Vatican Assassins. He's coming out with his third edition. The website is VaticanAssassins.org. Anything you want to give us with regard to an update or what's on the website that people should go check out?
Not really. I added a couple more buttons, but it's kind of up to the reader if they want to, investigate those ones on the bottom there. The VA3 will be out on CD only. Hopefully within the next 2 months. I found so much more new material that I just need to put in there with regard to the past that I thought it would help the student there quite a bit in getting through some of the assassinations like Garfield, McKinley, and so on. But it will be out hopefully in 2 months. It will be nearly 1,100 pages, and so it should be food for thought.
If this food for thought. If this continues this way, why don't you just make it encyclopedic and just start with volumes?
Well, I thought about that, but since I don't really have the ability to do that, I thought I'd just make one CD. And then the people can download it for the individual person that buys the CD. They can just download it for themselves in a book form, and they can use it that way.
We want to get to the main topic, which you've been willing to speak about, assassinations in the United States, where we have such civilized politics. We are extremely high on the chart as far as violence goes with our chief executives. But I also want to mention something else, and that is we've been talking about this, not to try to be mudslingers, but, I've gotten to the point now where nobody will talk about the Vatican and the Jesuits. And you know that I was a hard sell. We we corresponded quite a bit. And when I checked out what you base your work on, I realized, you know what? If it talks like it and walks like it, it probably is. And I'm sure you're still finding, as I see in your email group, some reticence, but also the willingness to go ahead and explore because either you're extremely deluded or you did a great deal of research. And what's your take on that?
Well, you're correct in that most of the people that are involved in this sort of work do not want to deal with the Jesuit order specifically. They may even touch the Roman Catholic institution. But they will not deal with the canon law which governs the papacy, the powers of the Pope. They will not most assuredly deal with the history of the Jesuit order, which is prolific during the 19th century, with lots of good works that are accessible to review that history and then how it comes into the 20th century. They don't want to touch it because they know ultimately that the Jesuits ruled this country.
I was on with Wing TV, and Victor and Lisa from that particular website. Have you ever watched their stuff at all?
No.
Okay. They're not far. Well, they're Pennsylvania's a big state, so they're northwest of you, but they are in the Keystone State. Mm-hmm. And they aren't necessarily deep in that, but they don't discount it. And we were on about that, and they said, well, you just can't point to one particular concern. I'm saying, no, that's not the case. The case is this Vatican and these Jesuits are major, major players, long running across centuries, and yet their footprints are hardly discernible across the record of history. Now, why is that? And also, if that's the case, why aren't networks like GCN, RBN, or whatever, who profess to be, at least have some evangelicals on, not touching upon this? It's not Roman Catholic bashing. It's looking at the Vatican in a very clear light. And you found that curious, did you not? In fact, you were on Dr. Stan's show, were you not, some time ago?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And was that met with much acceptance?
Well, he was courteous to me and asked good questions, but he never had me back. Other than that, that's probably all I am concerned about. Of course, I understand that a question was put to him if he was a member of a secret society, and he shut down the interview. So I have concerns about Dr. Stan, whether he's on the up and up or not. He deals exclusively with Masonry, he deals with the Club of Rome, or he deals with the Round Table of England, but he doesn't go any farther than the CFR and the Royal Institute for International Affairs. He refuses to go to the Vatican and deal with the Jesuit issue. But that's par for the course. You cannot be in this as a business and make money and name the Jesuits and the Vatican as the ultimate source of power.
Well, that's our stance also. I don't want to, like I said, poke sticks in the eyes of others, but I just find it curious that it is conspicuously absent. One of the things is that you know Paul from Vancouver, do you not?
Paul?
I'm not going to say anything more about that. I think you were a guest at his place in Toronto back in the ConCon days. Ring a bell?
I think so.
Yeah, it will come to you, and I'm taking you cold on this. Don't worry about it. And I mean, he may not agree with you scripturally or whatever, but he wrote a ripping email to me that we read on the air a while ago. In fact, we read it with Wing TV. And he said, you can talk about this group, you can talk about that group, you can talk about all this secular stuff. He said, but does anybody ever think about the fact that if you're going to talk about the Vatican secreting Nazis out of Europe via Operation Paperclip, he said, and I thought this is very wise, he said, do you think they sent them to the United States or South America and just said, hey, have a nice day, guys? Do you think they weren't in the midst of creating a network with the CIA, and which I think you'll say that also was more or less overlaid by the Cardinal Network in the United States? Is that kind of accurate?
Absolutely. Cardinal Spellman oversaw the entire Operation Paperclip. He was the head of the Roman hierarchy at the time, and they brought in tens of thousands of them into the U.S. and covered it up and informed the American people about it.
And I think his point's well taken, that if they went ahead and took the time and the effort and the risk, if there were any, to send them to the United States and to Russia and to South America, would they just say, again, just cut them loose and go, hey, we did a nice thing for you? No, there's always paybacks. Don't you believe?
Of course. They built they perfected the Black Pope's international intelligence community at that time with the creation of the hoax of the Cold War. And so there were Knights of Malta running the KGB, Knights of Malta running the OSS, Nazis within both groups, perfecting their international spy apparatus.
And lastly, Paul said, stop asking questions about the Bilderbergs, the CFR, the Trilaterals. He said, why not start asking questions about the Jesuits, the Knights of Malta, the Knights of Columba, and Opus Dei?
Absolutely.
All right, we're agreed on that. And,
absolutely. Remember that the Knights of Columbus were created in 1882 in New Haven, Connecticut by the Jesuits, which, by the way, was the home of Yale's Skull and Bones,
right.
And Book and Snake.
Scroll is Book and Snake, yeah.
Right. So we have the merging of apostate Protestant Christianity controlled by Masonry in conjunction with the Knights of Columbus working together.
All right, well, thank you for that prelude. Maybe we can get back to that later, but we do have some other very strong business at hand, and that is, I was thinking about that song by Carly Simon, Anticipation, and replacing it with the words Assassination. I mean, because, this culture, this society, and this country's politics are laced with assassination. So let's go back to the very first president, even though this may be after the fact, since he served his, I believe 8 terms, George Washington?
Yeah, he served 2 terms.
Right. Mm-hmm. 8 years worth?
Right.
All right. But you don't believe that he was bled to death, do you?
No. He was killed because if you read Headley's Life of Washington, when he gives the narration of his death from the time he takes ill to the time he dies is a mere 2 days. He has at least 3 doctors at his bedside.
Never a good thing.
Never a good thing. And it was through at least one of his doctors that he was poisoned. Now, he was in very high health at the age of 67. The official death certificate is that he died of pneumonia, which always raises a suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it was important for him to be killed was that he was a heretic. He was, we were told he was Episcopalian. That was his outward faith for many years. But right after the war, towards the end of the Revolution, he was baptized by a Baptist